Wow, reviewing the Pacific and Band of Brothers in the same video. That was quite the undertaking. Hope my review served them justice because that was a lot of stuff to write about. Two 10-part miniseries? That equals somewhere around, what, 22 hours? Oh well, listen to me ramble on. I'm just wasting time here, aren't I? You want to know what my #1 war movie is, don't you? Well, I doubt it's a shock to anyone what my favorite war movie is. It's one of the most famous movies of all time. I kind of feel unoriginal saying that this one is my favorite because usually everybody says that this one is their favorite war movie. I'm sorry, but I just can't resist loving it. Here it is. #1, Saving Private Ryan from 1998. Yeah, what did you expect? I know this movie gets a lot of praise and it's almost a cliche to consider this the best war movie, but let's just face it, it is. When it came out, nobody was expecting a movie to be written, acted, directed, or filmed this way. Most war films before this were usually very positive and nice to look at. I think Saving Private Ryan was the first to make everything look ugly and dirty. The colors are muted and the shadows are dark as can be. Spielberg purposely filmed it this way to try and resemble old stock footage from World War II. It doesn't just look like old war photographs, it gives you an unpleasant feeling. Nothing looks attractive in this movie. And war isn't glamorized at all. Does this movie really make you seem like this is an event you'd want to be a part of? Did the first 20 minutes make you proud that this war had to be fought? I don't think so. Before we get into Private Ryan, let's talk about the first 20 minutes of the movie. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is the American flag waving at the very beginning. Most people look at this opening shot with the wrong interpretation. People usually connect the shot of a waving American flag to overly delivered patriotism. Ironically, the movie The Patriot comes to mind right now. But to me, this shot all by itself is anti-war. Look at the flag. Do directors usually photograph an American flag that way? The blue, along with the white stripes, are gray. The stars are black, and the red stripes are pink. To me, this shot doesn't say I'm proud to be an American. It says that the generation of men who have fought for their country are dead. The real heroes didn't survive. And then right after that, we're in a vast sea of graves at the Normandy Memorial. I've argued with a lot of people who don't consider this movie anti-war at all. They felt that it praised war. If you think that this movie praises war, then your sense of interpretation is messed up because none of this is positive. After that, it flashes back to the seaborne landings on Omaha Beach during the invasion of Normandy. All the men in Captain Miller's boat are having a hard time keeping it together. These men already know they're dead. That's it. Once they reach the beach, it's pretty obvious that it's going to leave you with a negative impact. The scene when the Rangers land on Omaha will go down in history as one of the bloodiest, most disturbing scenes in American cinema. This was the scene that caught everyone off guard when they saw this for the first time. Well, Omaha Beach was not a pleasant landing. The first wave was completely wiped out. The German positions fired down at the exposed men with MG-42s and mortars. Back in 1998, audiences weren't used to seeing movies where men had their entrails hanging out and screaming for their mothers. The directing is outstanding, probably Spielberg's best. It almost seems like they gave him the camera and he's running around with it. It's all shaky and chaotic. There's dirt or blood on the lens, and sometimes he puts a frame around it to keep you enclosed. All really effective stuff that makes you feel like you're there. The part when Captain Miller is helping the Ranger out of the water and the camera keeps coming up then going back down, that's still amazing and highly effective. Speaking of effectiveness, the most in-depth look at shell shock in a movie is in this scene. Once Captain Miller reaches the beach, he falls into a daze and watches the chaos taking place all around him. It's kind of an homage to that cliche of the old man telling his war stories, and it comes to that part when he says, "And I looked around and saw men dying on all sides of me." When you hear it like that, you're like, yeah, that must have sucked, whatever. But when you actually see what that was like, you understand what they're talking about. Once you've seen this scene, you'll never forget it. Everything leaves a permanent scar on your brain. The sound of the MG-42s still lingers in my mind. The bunkers always fascinated me, the way they're shaped and how you can never see what's inside them. Even little things like when that M1 carbine gets hit and flies up in the air, or when that soldier falls into that puddle of blood in slow motion. All things that stood out to me, and I'm sure Spielberg did on purpose. Even though the Rangers are able to break through the German defenses and secure all the bunkers, the casualties are unbelievable. You could say that the point of this opening scene was to show you what a failure Operation Overlord was, but I think the real message is what a suffering waste of life it was. The scenes when Wade is trying to help the wounded men on the beach are tragic. He's doing everything he can, but really the best thing he can do is give them as much morphine as possible so they won't die a painful death. The last shot is the most important when it comes to a waste of life. Hundreds of freshly killed men piled on top of each other all along the beach, and the water is completely red. It's a horrible sight and still hard to watch today. And right after that we see women working in the War Department writing letters to the casualties' families. If this isn't anti-war, then I don't know what is. And that's what I have to say about the opening sequence to the movie. The story is that during the invasion of Normandy in 1944, 3 brothers who were serving in the military were killed in action, and their mother has to deal with this horrible loss. However, there is a 4th brother named Ryan who was a part of the 101st Airborne, and just like all paratroopers, he's missed his drop zone and is nowhere to be found. General George C. Marshall gets word of this and makes the decision to send a rescue team out into Normandy to find Ryan and bring him home, because of the sole survivor policy. Well, the public relations mission is assigned to Captain Miller and his men. They set out into German-occupied territory to try and find Private Ryan. The rest of the movie is about them trying to find Ryan in this hell, but it's nearly impossible. The story is loosely based on the story of the Nyland brothers, except the surviving brother was found in a Japanese prison camp.